I was 19 that summer, just a college kid, making a late-night drive back from a friend's place outside Barstow. It was June 2023. Desert heat still there even after midnight. The dashboard clock read 12:52 a.m. I had a fast food bag on the passenger seat, a strawberry shake sweating into the cup holder, and cruise control set just under 60, because my dad's voice lived in my head about speeding tickets. The desert stretched on, empty lanes reflecting the moonlight. A semi thundered by in the opposite direction once every 10 minutes. Otherwise, it was just me and my playlist. Night drives out here were supposed to be peaceful. Nothing but space, the smell of hot asphalt, and the low rattle of a loose straw clicking in its plastic lid. Then came the lights. Red and blue strobes erupted in my rear view, washing the cabin in frantic color. No siren, just the lights. They belonged to a dark sedan hugging my bumper. Out here, you don't ignore law enforcement, so I signaled, eased onto the shoulder, and hit my hazards. Dad's rules. Windows down, dome light on, wallet out, hands at 10 and 2. Show them you're no trouble. But even as I went through the motions, something felt off. The strobes flickered too fast, like cheap aftermarket bulbs. No light bar on the roof. The headlights looked dim, tinted wrong. My hazard lights ticked orange across the desert silence, and for the first time all night, I noticed how far from town I really was. The man who approached wasn't dressed like any cop I'd ever seen. Hoodie pulled up, face hidden in shadow despite my dome light. No hat, no badge, no radio, no belt. His right hand stayed tucked behind his thigh until he got close enough to rest a crowbar against my doorframe. "License and registration," he said flatly. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. No flashlight sweeping my car like usual. His eyes never settled, always darting down the road, then back again like he was waiting for something to appear. I stayed still, trying to breathe normally. Orientation week safety tips floated up from some buried corner of my brain. If something feels off, call 911, put hazards on, drive to a lit area. A real cop would understand. A fake one wouldn't. "I'll grab the registration from the glove box," I said, keeping my voice level. My foot shifted onto the brake, and my hand slipped the shifter into drive. The man looked at me like a bird sizing up prey. The crowbar scratched the paint as he leaned closer. That was enough. I let the brake go, swung back onto the shoulder, and floored it. Gravel spat everywhere. The crowbar whooshed past my window, missing by inches, leaving only a scrape across the door panel. The sedan lunged forward behind me, strobes still stuttering, but no siren, no radio squawk, just engine noise. He tucked tight into my slipstream, so close I could feel the pressure shift in the air around my car doors. I slammed 911 on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? I'm on 58 eastbound outside Barstow. Unmarked car lit me up. Guy came at me with a crowbar. No badge, no siren. I'm driving to the next exit. The dispatcher was calm. Keep hazards on. Do not stop on the shoulder. Continue to a lit, populated area. Deputy is en route. Can you describe the vehicle? Dark sedan, older, tinted. The lights don't look right. He's right on me. The road bent downhill. My engine screamed as I pushed past 70. In the mirror, the sedan bobbed in and out of my lane like it wanted to cut me off. My hands locked on the wheel, sweat soaking the leather. The green sign for the next exit appeared like a lifeline. Floodlights rose behind it. Truck stop. I took the ramp hot, tires squealing, hazard lights hammering the dark. The truck stop glowed, and a handful of smokers by the doors staring as I pulled in. My hazard flash painted the building orange. Behind me, the sedan slowed on the frontage road. It sat there 30 seconds just watching, before gliding away with no signals, vanishing into the desert. The dispatcher stayed with me until a real cruiser rolled in a minute later, light bar cutting the lot in bright blue. The deputy wore the full uniform, badge, Belt, radio, hat. The sight of him unclenched something deep inside me. "You the caller?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, my voice thin at this point. He stopped me with no siren, came up with a crowbar. "Good thing you left," the deputy said simply. "We've had a couple of these along the corridor." He took my info, crouched to examine the scrape in my door, and shook his head. "Not a baton mark. That's a pry tool. This was no cop." He told me I'd done the right thing. Hazards, 911, lit area. Real officer will understand. Fake one hates it. The sedan never came back. Another unit searched the frontage road. I sat with a styrofoam cup of gas station coffee, hands wrapped tight even though they weren't shaking anymore. When I finally merged back onto the highway, every pair of headlights felt like trouble. The sheriff's office later confirmed. Other reports, no plate matches. The cars varied, but the behavior was the same. Fake stops, late night, isolated drivers. They never caught anyone. But I know now, not everyone who flashes red and blue has the right to make you stop. And when someone asks me what I would have done if he was real law enforcement, the answer's easy. A real cop doesn't need to scare you into submission. They've got radios, sirens, procedures. They can stand up to the light. The man on the shoulder that night couldn't, and that's why I'm still here to tell it. I don't usually stop at little two-pump stations in the middle of nowhere. My mom's voice is always in my head. Go where the truckers go. The big plazas, the ones with fast food smells and at least a couple people inside. But that night, early May, finals just behind me, running on sunflower seeds and caffeine, I'd pushed the gas gauge too far. The low fuel light came on, and the miles to empty number mocked me. The interstate was too far. I pulled off onto a frontage road, hoping for anything open. There it was, a lonely canopy, one bulb flickering, moths orbiting it like it was the last star in the desert. The little cinder block building had an open sign that probably glowed bright 20 years ago. A paper sign on the door said no restroom after midnight. My dash clock read 2:33 a.m. I parked by the far pump and left the engine running, debating whether to risk turning it off. Decided against it. I figured I'd just prepay for $20 and keep rolling. Inside was everything you expect from a graveyard shift gas station. Cooler compressors rattling, a coffee pot ringed with tar-colored sludge, jerky that looked like museum exhibits. Country music whispered from a radio behind the counter. The clerk looked up as the door chimed. A guy maybe mid-20s, baseball cap, face I wouldn't have remembered in line at a DMV. And then his eyes went past me. Not at me. Not to the counter. Straight to the glass door I just walked through. Then to the convex mirror above the register. Then back again. Before I could say a word, he moved fast, hands slapping the metal latch shut. He leaned toward me, barely moving his lips. "Don't turn around." I froze where I stood, hands still in my hoodie pocket. His voice dropped lower. "Get your keys ready. When I open this, you're gonna walk out. Straight to your car. Eyes forward. Don't look around." My first thought was that he was messing with me. But his hand was flat on the counter, trembling just enough that I could see the tendons twitch. He looked toward the convex mirror. "If you gotta see, look there." I shifted my eyes up. The cheap fisheye mirror showed a slice of the pumps outside, my car's rear quarter panel, and a stretch of pavement. In that stretch, something shaped like a person. Hood up, face down, completely still. For half a second, I told myself it was a trash can. Then the shoulder rose and fell. Breathing. "There's another," the clerk whispered. "By your bumper." I scanned the mirror again. Sure enough, another shadow leaning against my trunk, head cocked just enough to show it wasn't an object. That's when the door handle rattled, like someone checking if the lock was loose. The clerk tensed up, staring at the latch. "They just tested it," he murmured. Already called it in. Deputy's not close. My mouth was dry. What do I? He cut me off with a shake of his head. Fob in your hand. Thumb on the panic button if you need it. When I crack this door, you walk. Keep your car between you and them. If they move, I'll bang the glass to pull their eyes. I slid my hand into my pocket, found the keys by feel. My thumb traced the buttons. Lock, unlock, panic. The ring snagged for a second on the seam of my jeans and my chest tightened until I freed it. The clerk looked at me. Ready? I nodded. My stomach felt hollow. He unlocked the door, cracked it open maybe 3 inches. Go. I stepped out. The night air was heavy and quiet. I kept my eyes on the car door handle. My sneakers thudded on the rubber mat, then the smooth concrete. My steps felt too loud. Something scuffed near the pump. I didn't turn, didn't blink sideways, just yanked the handle, slid inside, and hit the lock twice. The horn chirped, the locks clunked. That's when a palm smacked the back quarter panel, like marking territory. My pulse jumped. I twisted the key. Thank God it started on the first try. One shadow leaned in like they were trying to see through the back window. I threw it in drive, floored it straight through the pumps. Both figures moved, but they didn't chase. They just stood there, fading smaller in the rear view. Inside the station, the clerk was framed in the glass, face pale, hand on the latch again, watching until I hit the frontage road. On the highway, I called 911, voice shaking despite me trying to keep it calm. The dispatcher had me slow down, give the cross street, describe what little I'd seen. 2 men, hood up, one maybe wearing a hat. That was all. She told me to head for the nearest truck plaza, stay in a lit area until a deputy met me. When the deputy showed, he took my license, wrote notes, and said, "We've had some reports out here. People hanging around little stations, waiting for folks traveling alone." I asked, "Do you think they wanted?" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Could have been opportunistic," he said. "Could have been worse. Hard to say. But you did the right thing. Listened, didn't look back, got in your car." Later that week, the police called to say the station's cameras were too old and grainy. Nothing usable. No suspects identified. But the clerk had given his statement. He'd passed along a message. Tell him I'm glad he listened. When I drove past a month later, in daylight, the place looked smaller. New bulb in the canopy, new paper sign on the door. I went in for a Gatorade. Different clerk behind the counter. The convex mirror still hung above the register. I caught myself checking it before I stepped back outside. I'll never know exactly what those guys wanted. Maybe a robbery. Maybe something worse. All I know is that a stranger locked a door, whispered for me to listen, and probably saved me from a night that could have gone a whole lot darker. I was 22, moving like someone who thought duct tape was a moving plan. My Mazda was crammed to the ceiling with boxes marked kitchen, books, a crate of tangled cords, and clothes stuffed into a duffel that wouldn't zip. I'd left too late, convinced myself I could cross half the state in one push, and now I was running on gas station coffee and half sleep. The apartment office opened at 9 in the morning. It was past midnight. The plan had become, just keep the wheels moving until daylight caught me. The highway had that muted midnight rhythm. Nothing ahead but empty asphalt. I kept imagining unpacking, stacking boxes, bribing someone with pizza to help carry them up the stairs. Every seam in the pavement made the saucepan jab another dent into the books box behind me. Then the fuel light blinked on. I wasn't in the mood to gamble, so I took the next exit with a gas icon. The billboard promised clean restrooms and fresh donuts, but what I got was a 24-hour stop with 3 working pumps and a store that looked like it had given up on charm a decade ago. I slid up under the lights, left the headlights on, and got out. Then I saw a guy walking fast out of the dark edge of the lot. Wrinkled sport coat, pizza logo t-shirt, unshaven face. He looked like he'd once tried to be presentable and then quit halfway. "Trade me cars," he said, like we'd been in a conversation already. I blinked. "Sorry, cars. Keys." He pointed at a dented sedan parked at the curb with a mismatched passenger door. "The feds tagged mine. Yours is clean. You're going east, right? Perfect swap." I half laughed, half choked. Yeah, no. But he didn't move on. Instead, he started circling the back of my Mazda, eyeing the taped boxes like he was shopping. "Where you headed? Apartment complex near the stadium? I used to live there." He looked from my license plate to the sticker on my windshield like he was cataloging details. "You alone?" I stepped between him and the trunk. "Not talking about that, man." He smiled. "You'll want the elevator, not the stairs. Those boxes look heavy." That landed like a stone. He shouldn't have known I was moving into an apartment. I hadn't told him. I put the nozzle back, skipped the receipt, and slid into the driver's seat. "Take care," I said through the glass, but he was already drifting back toward his sedan. He didn't get in right away. He killed the headlights, left the engine running, and eased the car toward the exit. Just enough to point himself where I'd have to go. I locked my doors, circled wide around the building where I knew the cameras pointed, and pulled out. The sedan rolled onto the road ahead of me. Still dark. When I merged onto the highway, he tucked behind me. No lights, just a shape in the mirrors. Steady distance. My thumb hovered over my phone. I didn't want to call 911 and sound like a paranoid kid, but his headlights stayed dark, the car matching every move I made. That was enough. I hit call. 911, what's your emergency?" "Not sure if it's an emergency yet," I said, hearing the edge in my own voice. "Guy at a gas station asked to trade cars. He's now following me. Headlights off. Gray sedan, mismatched door. I'm in a blue Mazda." The dispatcher's tone changed to clipped procedure. "Windows up, doors locked. Don't stop. Drive to the nearest lit, populated place. I've got a unit clearing a stop nearby. Stay on the line." The sedan lingered in my blind spot, close enough that I could hear his engine. I flicked my turn signal like I was heading back onto the interstate. Then, at the last second, cut into the hotel entrance instead. A big awning, glass lobby, and just enough life inside to make me feel like I wasn't alone. I laid on my horn under the awning until the night manager stepped outside with a phone. Across the boulevard, a cruiser was parked at a closed fast food place. Dispatch patched me through, and the officer lit up his bar and swung over. The sedan appeared at the far end of the lot, creeping, no one getting out. Then it peeled away down a side street, still dark. The officer circled the lot, then parked. Took my statement. Sport coat, mismatched door, the bizarre "trade me cars" line. He said they'd had calls like this. People probing, testing, maybe looking for someone easier to corner. Cameras didn't catch the plate. The night manager comped me a room, said corporate policy allowed it when guests came in scared. I parked under the lobby cameras, carried up a duffel and toothbrush, and slept with my shoes still on and keys in my pocket. In the morning, the lot was just a lot, the boxes still dented the same way. But when the detective called a week later, his words landed heavy. No plate on camera. Vehicle too far in the shadows. That was it. End of file. Now, when I stop for gas, I pick a fake destination if anyone asks. I park where cameras point. And if anything feels wrong, I don't wait to see how wrong. I wasn't planning on stopping that late, but Reno had drained me dry. The client meeting ran long, the edits came later, and by the time I packed my laptop, it was pushing midnight. I still had an hour's drive before home, and my stomach was growling. The neon diner shimmered like a mirage at the edge of town. Pie case glowing, few truckers nursing bottomless mugs. It looked safe enough. Bright, familiar, Populated. I parked my blue hatchback under a lamp where I could see it. Habit. I like to keep my car in sight. I slid into a counter stool and ordered eggs and toast. The cook slid my plate across and I ate in silence. That's when I heard a voice to my left. "That blue hatchback outside yours?" I turned. A man stood there, mid-40s, jacket that had seen better days, face ordinary enough to pass in a crowd. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "What route you taking? North or south around construction?" I smiled politely. "Depends on traffic. You headed east or up toward the lake?" I only asked because there was a wreck near the junction. It felt less like advice, more like fishing. "I'll check the map," I said, firmer. He leaned closer. "You here alone?" That was it. Fork down, tone clipped. "I'm fine. Thanks." He didn't move right away. He looked toward the window where my car sat, then back to me. "Cute car. What year?" I ignored him, finished quickly, and paid in cash. The waitress, Cindy, handed me water in a to-go cup. She noticed my stiffness and asked softly, "Want me to wave from the door when you leave?" "Maybe," I admitted. "I'm probably overthinking it." "Probably," she said with a patient smile, "but I'll still wave." I stepped outside, and that's when my stomach dropped. My front right tire looked low, not flat, but off, and the valve cap was gone. There was even a half-moon smear of clean rubber where someone had swiped the dust away. I crouched like I was tying my shoe, scanning the lot without turning my head. A sedan sat dark a few spaces down. A man slouched in the driver's seat. In the diner window, Mr. Questions was at a booth, coffee in hand, eyes tilted toward my car. I went back inside. "Could one of you walk me out?" I asked Cindy. "The tire's been messed with." The cook set down his spatula without hesitation. "We got you." The three of us walked out together. The cook squatted, pressed the tire, and shook his head. Low. Someone bled it. Cindy stood by me with her arms crossed. I got in the car and locked it, cracking the window to thank them. "I'll head to the big station with the flag." They watched me roll away. The hatchback felt a little soft at the front, but I made it to the gas station lit like a stadium. I checked all 4 tires. Front right was down to 22 psi. I refilled it under the bright lights, bought cheap valve caps, and grabbed a portable inflator. When I pulled away, I texted a friend, "Tire messed with," at the flag station. All good now. The drive home was uneventful, but the tight coil in my chest didn't release until my garage door closed behind me. The next morning, I called the non-emergency line. The officer's voice was matter of fact. People sometimes do that to strand you. You pull onto a shoulder, they offer help, then you're vulnerable. I went back to the diner later that week. Cindy greeted me with relief. Together with the manager, we reviewed footage. There I was at the counter, paying. There was Mr. Questions sliding into a booth that gave him a clear view of my car. The outside camera caught him stepping out briefly, disappearing by my car, then returning. He sat watching, perfectly casual. Police burned a copy, but the angle was too poor for a plate. No ID. No arrest. That could have been the end. Nothing happened. But nothing felt wrong. Someone had tried to shape my night, and I'd walked right into their setup, except for noticing the details. Now I park under cameras, I scan tires before I drive. I keep the inflator in my hatch and gloves in the door pocket. And if anyone starts collecting details about my route, my destination, or if I'm alone, I lie. Flat out. The real story isn't what happened. It's what almost happened. The almost is where you test your instincts, where you rehearse the sentences that get you out alive. I remember that night in snapshots, like photographs stacked out of order. I wasn't looking for trouble, just gas, a receipt, and the last stretch before reaching my mom's place. It was late, and my 2 kids were asleep in their car seats in the back of the minivan. That alone made the night feel calmer than most long drives. The quiet, the steady breathing, the small miracle of both of them out at the same time. We were an hour from Grandma's. I could already picture her at the door in her robe, half scolding me for being late, half thrilled to scoop up the grandkids. I slid into a station just off the highway. Not a big truck stop, just 4 pumps under a canopy. I always park under the brightest light, a habit I don't question. It gives me a sense of being seen. I set the parking brake, checked the baby monitor app on my dash, their heads lolled, mouths slack, both out cold, then grabbed my wallet. The pump was taped off with a handwritten sign, "Inside only." I hesitated. I hate leaving the car even for a minute. But it was just a short walk, and I didn't want to wake them. Inside, a young cashier was counting bills behind the counter, barely looking up when I asked for pump 3. I slid my card, tapped the counter, and was about to turn back when something pulled at me. A tug in my chest. Through the window, I saw the rear sliding door of the van shift open, just a fraction. Not much, but enough to break the clean line of reflection on the metal. My body moved before my brain caught up. I sprinted across the lot. My hand hit the door with a slam, forcing it shut. A man in a hoodie was right there, bent low. I only saw his hands and a shadow of his jawline, but I'll never forget the way he looked at me. He didn't look startled or caught, just adjusting, like he was waiting for the next move. "Get away from my car," I yelled, my voice cracking with adrenaline. He stepped back, palms up like this was nothing. He gave a little half smile, the kind that says no harm done. Then he turned and walked away slowly, as if he was just stretching his legs. I hit the horn, long and hard. The noise shattered the night. My hand jammed the panic button on my key fob too. Lights flashed, alarm screaming. Inside the store, the cashier jerked upright. At the diesel pumps, a trucker started jogging toward us. The man didn't run. He slipped behind a sedan parked at the far edge, slid in, and the car peeled out. Headlights off until the last second. Gone. I jumped inside and hit the locks 3 times in a row just to feel them click. The monitors still showed my kids sleeping, oblivious. I was shaking so badly the horn sounded broken. The trucker knocked on my window. "You good?" he asked. He opened the back door. "My kids, you touched them?" he asked, urgent. "No, they didn't wake. I stopped him." He scanned the lot with quick, practiced eyes. "Head to the truck plaza up the road. More people, cameras. I'll follow you a mile." I called 911 the second I hit the road, explaining in bursts. Man in hoodie, tried the sliding door, black sedan left right after. 2 kids in the car. The dispatcher told me to head to a well-lit area and stay put for police. At the truck plaza, I parked directly under a camera. The trucker pulled in across from me like a guard. 10 minutes later, a county SUV arrived. The officer was calm, careful not to spook me or the kids. He checked the van, dusted the handle, reviewed my statement. The station camera had caught part of it. Me sprinting, the sedan rolling out. They got a partial plate, not enough for an arrest. That was the end of the case. But it wasn't the end for me. I changed after that night. Child locks always engaged, doors locked while fueling. Pay at the pump or not at all. Small things maybe, but they make me feel less helpless. I've told myself 100 versions of what could have happened if I hadn't looked up when I did. I try not to stay in those what-ifs too long. But I do know this. Safety isn't the canopy lights or the cameras. Safety is noise. It's alertness. It's saying no out loud. And now, even on the safest nights, I don't let myself relax until I'm home with the doors locked. So, who's ready for their next midnight cruise? Yeah, me neither. Smash that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next nightmare, and tell me what you'd do if it were you in the driver's seat. But if you really want to know what it feels like when the open road turns into a trap, click now to watch 4 disturbing trucker horror stories, because what waits at the next stop might not want you to keep driving. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.